All righty. Hello, everybody. This will serve as our TELPAS Spring 2021 training. So this will be for those of you that have students in your class that are rated using TELPAS. This will be the training for that. So before we get started, um, I'm going to go through what's in your folder that I gave you. I tried to put them in your boxes. If I didn't put them in your boxes, then I put them, I handed them to you. So if you did not get your folder, absolutely let me know. But we'll go ahead and go through what's in the folder. So first things first, you should have a copy of the TELPAS spring dates. So the top three sections are just related to stuff that I have to do. So the first thing on the calendar of the dates that applies to you is when we are doing the online calibration, which is February 10th. So a week from Wednesday, February 10th, in the computer lab, we will be doing online calibration. February 8th, which is this coming Monday, is the first date that second grade teachers can begin collecting writing samples. So again, we'll talk about that in depth in our training, but be prepared. February 8th is the beginning date for any writing that you collect for second graders. February 17th, that doesn't apply to you. Our TELPAS testing window is February the 22nd through the March 30th. Now, what that means is when we are doing our online listening, speaking, and reading testing for our second graders. March 16th is a Tuesday. It's the Tuesday we come back from spring break. That is the day that we have chosen for our second graders to do the reading portion of TELPAS. So I will be getting your students and taking them to the computer lab where we will do the reading test. Again, second grade teachers, as that date gets closer, I'll be giving you more information. But for now, I just wanted you to be aware of that date so you could put it on your calendar. I tried to pick a week that did not have any CBA testing. UIL was not competing during that week. So go ahead and put it on your calendar so that you know that that's a day that will need to be carved out for our TELPAS reading test. Now, the following 2 days, March 17th and 18th, that is a Wednesday and a Thursday. I will split our second graders into two groups. Half of them will do the listening and speaking test on Wednesday. Half of them will do it on Thursday. Again, I will be getting with you as time grows closer to give you more information about that. So for now, block out those dates or put them on your calendar so that you know those are the dates that we're going to be doing TELPAS testing. All right, the next date listed is March 18th. That is the day I would like all writing samples for second grade to be given to me so that I can verify them. Again, we'll talk about this more in the training, but I would like to be able to verify that you have 5 samples. They're all correct. They match the parameters for what we're supposed to have, and then I will give them back to you for you to assign a rating to your second graders. So March 18th, that's a Thursday. I'd like to have all writing samples turned in. And then March 25th is the date for all teachers, kinder, first, and second, to have their student rating rosters turned in to me. That way I can make sure I have everything in line before I go on the 30th to enter all of that into the computer with our district testing coordinator. So those are the dates. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're moving on. All right, the next thing in your folder, you should see a TELPAS student rating roster. It looks like this, has your students listed. Now, I'm using Angie's as an example because Angie, you're actually going to have 2. You have 2 kindergarten kids and you have 1 second grade student. So right now, I want each of you to take out your rating rosters. I want you to look at them. Make sure that the students listed on the rating roster are in fact your students. And then also make sure that I have spelled their names correctly. If I have not, please make a note and let me know, and I will get you updated rosters. So right now, take a moment, look at your rosters. If those are your students, great, check mark. If their names are spelled correctly, check mark. If I'm missing any students that should be on there, please let me know. Other than that, check mark, we're moving on. So those are the rating rosters that kinder, first, and second will use to rate their students holistically. And then you'll turn those into me by March 25th. Okay. The next thing in your folder should be this little TELPAS 2021 quick reference guide. So again, you'll note I've underlined and put an asterisk at the top. This training does not take the place of reading the appropriate manual. You have the manual in your folder as well. It is your responsibility to read it, to know what it says, and to be familiar with it whenever it comes time for you to rate your students and as you are collecting writing samples. So again, that's for second grade. All right, so one thing about the quick reference guide. So the front first page tells you it's a quick reference guide, like I said, for if you wanted to know certain parts, where certain parts in the manual are, that's your little cheat sheet. On the second page, this top part, I should have put on there. This first half really only applies to second grade for the assembling writing collections. Kindergarten and first grade, you will not be collecting writing samples for your students, but you will be giving them a rating in writing. So the first half of that applies to second grade. Second grade, please be familiar with what that says. Down at the bottom where it says reading, listening, and speaking will be assessed through an online assessment with a campus testing coordinator, Ms. Gilbert. That is for second grade. Second grade students will do an online assessment with me for reading, listening, and speaking. Now, below that, that applies to everybody. Assessing students who are near the cusp between two proficiency levels requires close attention to the level at which they perform most consistently. Again, we'll talk about that in the training. So be kinder, first, and second, be aware of the procedures for rating students. That's on page 31 in your rater manual. And then the proficiency language descriptors, otherwise known as PLDs, please be very familiar with those before we do our calibration activity on Wednesday, February 10th. So that's a week from this Wednesday. Yes, please be aware of those before you come to the training. All right, the next thing is the actual rater manual. This is what you are responsible for reading. I know those of you that have done TELPAS for years and years and years, you're like, it says the same thing. Well, I still encourage you to read it. Even though I read it last year, I read it again, cover to cover, just so I know what is in the manual and what is expected and how things are supposed to be done. So I encourage you, take the time to read this. And then second grade teachers and Angie, you should also have these yellow folders. These are for collecting the writing samples. Inside is the cover sheet that will go with the writing. So kindergarten and first grade, you will not have yellow folders, but second grade will. Okay, so gone over what is in the folder, and now we're going to actually go through the manual and go through our training. If you have any questions about anything that I've said so far, there is a section in the quiz for you to enter your questions. I will read those. I can get back to you. You can also email me. If you feel it's necessary to come hash it out and get some feedback, you want to talk through something, you are more than welcome to come to my office. I'd be happy to talk to you about this. So again, if you have questions, ask them. Okay. You may have noticed that I did not include a copy of the oath in your training folder. That's because I would like for you to watch this video and answer the quiz questions. And once you've done that, then you'll come to me and you'll sign the oath, because the oath is supposed to be signed at the conclusion of the training. So I want to make sure that you do the training and then you sign the oath. So that's why you don't have a copy of the oath. Okay, so I think I have gone over everything in the folder. Now it's time to go over what's in the manual. So I'm just going to kind of start at the beginning and go over some parts that I've highlighted. Okay, most of you already know, but this is a reminder. TELPAS is designed to assess our students in 4 language domains. The 4 language domains are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And there are 4 different language proficiency levels that could be assigned to a student. They could be rated as beginning, intermediate, advanced, or advanced high. Okay. And the assessment components um, are for K1, all teachers will rate their students and give them a holistic rating in all 4 of those domains. For second grade, teachers will only holistically rate their students in writing. The other 3 domains, listening, reading, and speaking, will be assessed on the online test, and that's what I will pull them to the computer lab for. So that is the general information about what TELPAS is, what it does. It is a federal mandate. It's how we are monitoring our English language learners to make sure that they are making progress academically and that they are not impeded by any language barrier, that we are giving them the language supports that they need, and that they are making progress. Hopefully, eventually, they will gain all of the skills and language or English language skills that they need, and they will be exited out. But again, TELPAS is the assessment that we use to monitor their progress. Okay, so the instructions in this manual will explain your responsibilities, will explain my responsibilities, and what we do for our students using TELPAS. Okay, so if you'll turn the page, I'm on page 2 and 3. Should have said that. If you do not currently have the Rater manual in front of you, please take it out of your folder and be following along with me. Okay, so our EL students are required to be assessed annually. It's not something we do every other year. Every single year, our EL students should be assessed using TELPAS until they meet the reclassification criteria and can be reclassified as a non-LEP or a non-EL student. That usually happens as they get older. For us at the primary grade, most of our students stay designated or classified as an EL student. Okay, so turning the page, on page 4, we're going to talk about the test security and confidentiality. This is very, 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 very important. And even though I know you already know it, it is my job, my responsibility to go over it every single year just to make sure we are still on the same page. Okay, so maintaining the security and confidentiality of the Texas Student Assessment Program is critical for ensuring the fair and equal testing opportunities for all students. If we in Lufkin give our students extra support that Nacogdoches students don't get, then the results are skewed. It's not a true assessment of where our students are. So we have all of these procedures in place to make sure that all students are tested equally and fairly. So there we go. Each person, you'll notice at the bottom of page 4, each person participating in the student assessment program is required to maintain and preserve the confidentiality of all secure test content, including test booklets, online assessments, that doesn't apply to you, completed answer documents, Texas holistically rated components, and TELPAS calibration activities. So if you are involved in TELPAS, it is your responsibility to maintain the test security and confidentiality of that. That might include making sure that your students are not talking about what was on the listening and speaking test. Again, that applies to second grade. Whoever's in that first group doesn't need to go back and talk to their counterparts about what was on the listening and speaking test. So that's up to you and me to make sure that we maintain the confidentiality and security of the test. You'll notice on the top of page 5, that includes TELPAS calibration activities. We are not allowed to record anything for the calibration activities. We're not allowed to calibrate with each other. If we do take notes, those notes have to be given back to me. So we cannot record or take notes about any portion of the calibration activities in order to maintain the security of the test. Okay, so Three points on page 5 I really want to point out, make sure you know. The very first one says all testing personnel who participate in statewide testing must undergo training and sign the appropriate security oath. And again, you'll sign that once you've watched all of this training. When you sign that, you are affirming that you understand your obligations concerning the security and confidentiality of the assessment before you're able to do any of that. So for you guys, that means you have to sign that oath agreeing to the confidentiality and security of the test before you can do your calibration, which we're doing on Wednesday. All right, the fourth bullet down said no person may view, reveal, or discuss the contents of a test booklet or online assessment, which includes our calibration, before, during, or after a test administration unless specifically authorized to do so by the procedures outlined in the test administration materials. So for those of us doing the calibration, that means we cannot discuss it before, during, or after the calibration activities. The fifth one says no person may duplicate, print, record, write notes about, or capture electronically or by any other means any portion of a secure assessment instrument, paper or online, without prior approval from TEA. So if you take notes on, what the calibration activities were about, notes about which students were considered intermediate, et cetera, that is a violation of test security. We cannot take notes about the calibration activities. When you do come to calibrate, I'll have copies of the PLDs. I'll have some scratch paper. You are more than welcome to take notes while you are calibrating, but all of those notes have to be given to me before you leave. Again, it's all written right there. That is TEA's rule. That's not Heather Gilbert's rule. That's not even Lufkin's rule. That is TEA's rule, and that's what we have to do. Okay. The bottom of page 5, you see the training requirements. Testing personnel are required to receive annual training. So this is why we do this every year. TEA's rule is that we have to do this every year annually. Okay. By signing the appropriate oath, you affirm that you have been trained, you understand your obligation to properly implement the program, you acknowledge your responsibility to report any suspected testing irregularity to the district or campus coordinator, which is me, principal, or the TEA Student Assessment Division. And you are aware of the range of penalties that may result from a violation. So the bottom of page 6, you see the serious testing violations. The ones I want to point out are falsifying holistic ratings or student responses. So for what that means for us on a primary campus, for kinder and first grade teachers, if you knew that your student was really a beginner in the beginning, but you wanted it to look better on you and you rated them advanced, that would be considered a serious testing violation. So it's very important that you be very critical and honest about where your students are so that we get a most accurate rating for them. Also, discussing or disclosing secure test content. We talked about that. If we talk to each other during a calibration activity with each other, then that is considered a serious testing violation, and that's why we can't do it. It's just like any other test that you give a kid. We tell them, we want it to show what you know, not show what you've been told by somebody else. So we need to know what you, the individual teacher, knows about calibrating students as far as ratings. Again, third from the bottom bullet point says receiving or providing unallowable assistance during calibration activities. So if you take notes, if you share answers, if I share answers or take notes, that is considered a serious testing violation. If I encourage or assist an individual to engage in the contact described in the items above, that's a serious testing violation. If I fail to report to the appropriate authority that I know that an individual has done that, then that is considered a serious testing violation. So I don't say any of that to scare you or to freak you out. It's just I need everybody to be on the same page and understand that this is the rule. This is what we have to do. So let's turn the page. Again, you can read about that. The accommodation errors, that really applies to me and what I'm responsible for. So keep on going to page 11. The penalties for violating security and confidentiality. They're pretty stiff. If we were to be, guilty of a serious testing violation, we could be referred to the State Board for Educator Certification. Our license could be revoked. It could be suspended. There could be provisions put on our licensure. But even scarier is our school and district accreditation could be lowered simply for violating test security. So those are pretty serious things. So again, those are all there. You could read them. You need to read them. You need to be aware of what they are. But I'm not worried about that because we're just going to do what we need to do and we're going to move on. Okay, so move on over to page 13. This is the general information about how students are holistically rated using the TELPAS assessments. It'll be writing collections for our second graders, and then it'll be observational assessments in the 4 domains for kindergarten and first grade. So that's the information about that. So after this training, you should be able to assess the English language proficiency of students and assign one of the 4 ratings: beginning, intermediate, advanced, or advanced high. And you should be able to record the students' ratings and the relating information on the student rating roster, which I've given you. After all of that, I will sit down with Jill, and she will get to Jill and Amanda, and they will go over the student ratings, and they will be reviewed by the campus principal. Okay. All righty. So moving on. Page 18. So flip. Page 18. All raters, writing collection assemblers, and verifiers are required to be trained. And that's me. I'm the one that's verifying those. So I have to go through my training every year, and I've already done it. So yay me. But if you if you feel like you want to do the online basic training course again, just to become familiar with how to rate students, that is always available to you. But because all of you are returning raters, you don't have to do it. Okay. And again, that's on page 19. So if you were brand new, you would do the online basic training course before doing the calibration. All of you are returning raters, and that's why we're skipping that part and going straight to calibration. Okay. Again, make sure you know all of that. I think I've said all that. All right, so on page 20, down towards the bottom, it says returning raters may log in using the same username and password used in 2020. So if you currently do not know your username and password, I encourage you to find out what it is before we come back for calibration on Wednesday. I don't know that I will be able to tell you what your password is. I don't think I can, but I might be able to assist you in resetting. Yeah, choosing a new password. But again, please, before you come to the training, know what your username and password is. Okay, all right, that's that. Okay, we've talked about the online calibration has to be done in a monitored setting, so I'll be there if you have questions. Alrighty. All right, so on page 22, top paragraph, about halfway through, says when completing calibration activities, refer to the PLDs as you rate each student. Okay, so when we're calibrating, you will have the PLDs in front of you. I will bring extra copies so you can take notes on them to better help you calibrate. So yes, there's that. So what you'll do is you'll read the description of a student. You'll look through the PLDs. This is why it's important to be familiar with them before you come to training, come to calibration. You'll read through it and you'll rate the student. Okay. All right. So if you do not calibrate on your first set, please do not worry. Okay. The whole point of this calibration activity is to make sure that we fine tune our calibration abilities. So if you do not calibrate on the first set, it is okay. Do not stress out. You will have a second opportunity. Now, if you don't calibrate on the first set, I will have you do the online basic training to become more familiar. And then on another day, you'll do the second set. But don't worry about that. Okay. Halfway down page 22 says, after you have successfully calibrated, you'll go to the scoring summary tab to access your certificate. You'll print that. You'll give me a copy. That's my record that you did the calibration activity. Okay. Again, there's all kinds of information in there. Inside the box, in that middle paragraph, it says, while collaboration is encouraged during the TELPAS assessment window, it is imperative that rater calibration is done individually to ensure that raters are able to apply the PLDs accurately and consistently. What they mean by that is if during the TELPAS testing window, if a kindergarten or first grade teacher would like to collaborate, let's say a kid gets pulled by one of the reading lab ladies, and you would like to say, hey, talk to me about what you think their reading ability is, or their speaking ability. Would you say they're intermediate? Would you say they're beginning? It is fine to collaborate that way. But what this is saying is during the calibration activity, we can't, because each individual teacher is ultimately responsible for rating their students. And so we do the calibration individually, but if during the TELPAS testing time you want to collaborate with other teachers, that is fine. I know that probably sounds very confusing. If it does, I'm sorry. Just come ask questions. Okay. All right. So page 23 really applies to Angie and our second grade teachers. It's the information about assembling and verifying the writing collections. So I know that this training is getting kind of long, so I'm not going to go bit by bit by bit. I'm going to do the bullet points. I trust that second grade teachers are going to read this information and they're going to be aware of it. Okay, so quick bullet points. Each writing collection must contain at least 5 writing samples and must include at least 1 writing sample that elicits the use of past tense, and then at least 2 academic writing samples from math, science, or social studies. Okay, writing has to be assigned on or after February 8th, 2021. Any writing collected before that time will not count. Okay, so make sure that all students have their name and their date on their writing. The last bullet on page 23 says all writing should reflect a student's current proficiency level. The more recent the writing samples are, the more accurate the collection will be. Okay, so I'll leave that up to you teachers to collect writing samples throughout the window, and not everything be dated February 8th and February 9th. Okay. Page 24, you have the cover sheet and the verification checklist in those yellow folders. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I would like for second grade teachers and Angie to turn in their writing collections for me to verify. That's so that I can make sure that the writing matches the parameters. It's not, question and answer. It doesn't have any teacher corrections. There are, in fact, the right number of samples. One of the samples elicits the past tense, and so on. So I want everyone collecting writing samples to give those to me by March the 18th. I'll verify it, and I'll give it back to you, and then that's when you assign the rating. Okay. Any questions? Let me know. All right. So information regarding the types of writing samples to include is provided on these following pages. They do not have to, be these exact examples, but these are great examples to choose if you need some guidance on, which writing samples to use. Okay. They should be taken from authentic classroom activities that's grounded in the content area TEKS and the ELPS. It shouldn't be, okay, well, we're going to do this complete standalone TELPAS writing. It should be a part of what you're teaching in class. That's the best way to collect writing that properly demonstrates where our second grade students are. Okay, so again, The next couple of pages talk about the different types. On page 27, there are directions about what not to include as far as writing collection or in the writing collection. I encourage you to read all of that, be familiar with it. Okay, so on page 29, when you are preparing to rate your students, so this is kindergarten, first and second, when you are preparing to rate the students, these are some guidelines that you can follow. I mentioned earlier, while collaboration with others can be useful, ultimately you are the official rater and you are ultimately responsible for the ratings that you assign. If you choose to collaborate with, music teachers, reading lab ladies, Ms. Fuller, all those people, that's fine, but make sure it is a rating that is what you deem necessary, what you deem to be the actual rating for them. Okay. Page 31, there are some really good pointers about procedures for rating the students. Always refer to the PLDs when you are rating students. Those of you that have been doing this for a long time, in your mind, you're like, I know what's a beginning student, I know what's an intermediate student, but it is best practice to have the PLDs in front of you and use those as your guide when rating your students. So please do not assume that you have the PLDs memorized. And then please don't factor in other student abilities or characteristics when you're rating the students. We all know there are some really cute kids that are just so outgoing and they're just so good at like listening and speaking, but when it comes to reading and writing, they're not doing so great. So please don't think, oh, well, they're great in listening and speaking, that transfers to reading and writing. We know that it doesn't. So, if a kid is a wonderful behavior kid, oh my gosh, they're just so good. They never get in trouble. I hate to rate them beginning because they really could be intermediate. We have to be as honest as possible because this rating is going to follow them up through the grades. So if we rate them, really high in first grade, oh, they're just so good. And then they get to second grade and they do the online test, and where they were advanced in first grade, now they're intermediate in second grade. We need to be as consistent as possible. So again, that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, so the writing ratings of students in second grade must only be based on their writing collection. So what I mean by that, let's say, you're thinking about all the progress they've made. So in September, this student's writing was definitely beginning. Okay, well, now they've made so much progress. I hate to say that they're still beginning. Maybe I should rate them intermediate. We can't do that. We have to look at the 5 pieces of writing and rate them solely on that. I'm not going to look at what they wrote, as part of a group project, or I'm not going to look at what they write in their journal every day. I'm looking at the 5 pieces in the writing collection and making their rating solely based on that. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Really good point. Complete all ratings for one student before proceeding to the next student. And the reason why we ask you to do it that way is it avoids comparing student to student. Well, Johnny is a beginner. Well, Sarah, she's much better than Johnny. So maybe she's not a beginner, maybe she's intermediate. It's very important to complete all the ratings for one student before you move on to the next one. Okay. Again, going back to the PLDs, make sure you compare each student to the PLDs and do not let the proficiency levels of other students influence how you rate another student. Okay. And then remember, the academic language proficiency is not the same as academic achievement. Okay. You might have a student that has grasped the academic language and they're advanced, but for another reason, they are struggling academically. So don't let their academic achievement confuse what their academic language proficiency is. So let that sink in. And if you have questions, let me know. Okay, so looking on, we're almost to the end. So Appendix A starts on page 35. Okay. So here's Appendix A. Those are the proficiency level descriptors. Okay. First one is K-12 listening, speaking, then reading, and then K-1 writing. And then the last one are the PLDs for 2nd grade through 12th grade writing. Okay. These are the PLDs I need you to be familiar with before you come to the training on Wednesday. Okay. And then after that is another copy of the rating roster, but I've already given you that. And then the last one is the writing cover sheet for 2nd grade. So I believe that's all the training that I have. Hopefully you're still with me. If you have any questions, please let me know. After watching this video, please complete the Google form, Google quiz, whatever. That is how I know that you did the training. So when you come to me to sign your oath, I will look and make sure that you have done the quiz. That's my way of knowing that you did this. So again, you guys are awesome. Keep rocking. I guess that's all I have.